Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. We're glad you've joined us. We are talking today why it is important to meet your spouse's needs.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hey everybody, we're so glad you joined us today.
Thank you for joining us. We are glad that you are listening. Thank you for giving us your time and hanging out with us on this podcast. We enjoy each week getting to come by your radio or iPhone or whatever it is and talk a little bit about marriage and family.
Yes.
It's fun stuff.
It is good stuff. So
Yep.
we're just glad you tuned in.
We appreciate you listening. We get messages from listeners all the time. Y'all encourage us and inspire us to keep going. That's what kind of lights our fire is when we hear, hey, we love listening. And we have listeners from all over the world, and that's pretty cool too. So 2 quick announcements. Houston next weekend, Pasadena, Texas. If you have not registered, it is still open. It is filling up quickly. There is a lot of people going to be there. It is going to be awesome. You will be glad you came. It is a Saturday event from 9 to 3. You can register online. You can find that registration link at treyandlee.com at our webpage. Also, Woodward, Oklahoma just opened. And so we are just getting that opened up. That will be a marriage workshop as well. That will be in December. And if you are anywhere in the area, come hang out with us. You'll like it.
That's right.
We promise it will be fun.
Give your spouse the gift of a stronger marriage.
That's it.
For
That'd be a
Christmas.
good
For
Christmas gift.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you want for Christmas? I want you to take me to Woodward, Oklahoma, or Pasadena, Texas, for Christmas.
That's right. And it won't be painful, we promise.
Nope.
Our workshops are not painful.
Nope. and guys tend to drag their feet the most. And in the long run, they're the ones that like it the best. They're the ones that go, man, I am really glad I came. And so if you're a guy and you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, are they going to have us stand up and talk? No, not going to happen. Are you going to do something to embarrass us? Not going to happen. We promise you, you will like it. Just come listen.
Yes.
Yep, a lot of fun. So we're talking today why it's important to meet your spouse's needs and kind of how to meet your spouse's needs, because what we want in marriage is, of course, I want my needs met, but I also understand for things to work well, I love you, and so I want to meet your needs as well, because our needs are very different.
That's right.
Marriage is about loving others above yourself.
That is exactly right. So yeah, we got to know what each other's needs are, and we got to work hard to meet those needs.
Yeah, there are certain things that are very important to your spouse, just like there are certain things, emotional needs, that are very important to you. And when you do those things that shows them that you love them and you strive to meet those needs, the way it should work is in return, they're going to want to meet your needs. And in marriage really clicks along well. I know that there are some things that I do specifically because you love them. They're not really in my wheelhouse, meaning they're not really my strong suit, but I do them because I love you. I also know that there are things that you do for me emotionally that may not be your most favorite things to do in the world, but you do them because I love them, and I appreciate that. And you know, it's pretty amazing when you get up every morning and you think to yourself, I have no doubt my wife is going to bless me today. I really need to get on my A game and do the same. That's when marriage begins to really work well.
It is. It truly is a give and take. Marriage should never just be a take and take. There's always giving involved. And when you're on the receiving end, then you are usually more than happy to give as well.
That's exactly right. And your spouse, we're going to talk about some of the emotional needs, but your spouse, you may be going, hey, these things just really aren't important to me. Maybe if you're a man listening, you're going, communication just isn't all that big a deal to me. But if it's important to your spouse, it ought to be important to you. As a wife, you may be listening to you, and your husband may have recreational companionship as something that's very important to him, where you hang out and spend time doing things he likes. And you may go, I hate college football, but if it's important to him, it needs to be important to you. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things how we've done that as well. It's not uncommon for husbands and wives to be a little bit different.
Yeah. First, we do want to say we're going to list off about 10 emotional needs that everybody needs. Everybody does. Now, there may be some things on this list that you think, that's really not that important to me, and so you would put it at the bottom of your list. But at some time or another, you need it in some form or fashion. But the things that are that you might put at the very bottom of your list, oddly enough, are the things that are probably at the very top of your spouse's list. And that's just kind of how marriage works. I mean,
husbands and wives are just different.
Where opposites attract in a lot of cases. And then we always say, maybe your personalities are pretty similar, but you're male and female, and so you're different in that respect. And men and women are just wired up differently.
That's right. So basically what you're saying, if I understand you right, is while all 10 of these are going to be important to you in some way, form, and fashion, but there are going to be some that are a lot more important to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so all of these are going to be important things. They may not be things that you're good at. You may have to learn to be affectionate, or to communicate well, or to be more open and honest. But these are all things that if this is something your spouse goes, I need this, you should be more than happy to go, hey, if that's something that's important to you, then it's important to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you go about finding out what your spouse's emotional needs are and what your emotional needs are? We're going to talk through 10 of them, and we're going to put all 10 on this podcast on the notes. We're going to post a post on Facebook, on Instagram, and on our Twitter page of what those 10 needs are to kind of help you work through them. But how do you know what your spouse's top 5 are?
Yeah. So the first thing is going to involve communication, of course. You've got to talk about it, but to even figure it out, you've got to kind of look at what these emotional needs are, and you probably know really what you need and what's most important to you. But when you actually look at a list and you have to check off a list, you might look down there and go, okay, well, there's I see openness and honesty is on that list. And so you might ask yourself, if I am receiving openness and honesty, if my spouse is totally open and honest with me, how happy does that make me? How fulfilled does that make me? On a scale of 1 to 10, and if you're like, I'm glad he's honest with me or open with me, but I don't know, maybe a 5, then that's probably not going to be up towards the top of your list. But, if you're thinking, man, that's a 10, I need him to be open and honest with everything at all times, then, that's something that's really important to you. And you might look at it from the opposite spectrum of, if I'm not receiving openness and honesty, if my spouse is a little deceitful, if he hides things, how unhappy does that make you? So you're looking at it from the happiness standpoint or the unhappiness. And if you rate that really high, well, that's a 10, that makes me extremely unhappy when they hide things from me, then there again that's very important to you.
Yeah.
So
well said. And so we've got a list of 10. And what you could do is sit down with your spouse and maybe work through and just pick out your top 5. You may say, but all of them are important. But just go through and pick out your top 5 and have your spouse look at their top 5 and go, these 5 are most important to me. And don't be surprised if they're very different. We've had couples that have showed us their lists, and they're exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Her number 10 was his number 1, and his number 10 was her number 1.
Yep.
That's marriage. Welcome to marriage. And it's called learning to meet your spouse's needs.
Right.
So you're going to have to communicate with your spouse and let them know what your needs are. You're going to have to ask your spouse, what are their needs, and kind of go through this list. So let's talk about the 10 things. Now, these 10 things have come from a lot of research done by Dr. Willard Harley, who wrote a book called His Needs, Her Needs. And we're going to use those 10 emotional needs. And I'll give you all 10 of them real quick, and then we'll go back and talk about them. His 10 are sexual fulfillment, affection, financial support, domestic support, recreational companionship, conversation, openness and honesty, family commitment, attractiveness of spouse, and admiration. So those are the 10, and we're going to go through and kind of explain what those are for just a minute, and then kind of give you a little homework assignment to do with your spouse, and then close out by talking a little bit about, well, what if I'm meeting my spouse's needs, but they're not meeting ours? So do we want to take off and do number 1?
Sure. So the first thing on the list, and of course this is not in any order of importance because everybody's order of importance is going to be different.
Yep.
But sexual fulfillment is an emotional need.
It is not a want.
It is a need.
It is a need, and we've talked about that just recently with a couple who said, well, that's just that is a need. And so it's not only having, if your spouse puts this down, sexual fulfillment down, as a need in their life, that means you need to be do a good job at maybe finding out frequency, how much is important. Maybe initiating more often would be important to them, because that's going to make you feel like you want to be involved. For example, if conversation was something that was really important to you, and your spouse just kind of always said, well, just let me know when you want to talk. I don't really need to, but let me know and I'll listen. However, you'd be going, I don't want to talk if you don't want to participate. And so it's important in sexual fulfillment, if that's your spouse's needs, for you to kind of go, all right, I'm willing to participate because this is important to you.
That's right. And if you're kind of ranking this on your scale, and it's more, you're pretty indifferent about it, just recognize that this truly is a need. I mean, God created sex as a way to bond a man and woman, and we've done episodes on this, talking about the oxytocin and how God created it to be, it bonds you, it makes you one. Things just seem to work better when you feel that connection to one another. And so, believe it or not, it is something that you need. Maybe you don't need it as frequently as your spouse, and maybe you're just thinking I don't like it. We hear that from a lot of women. I just don't like it. There are things you can do maybe to educate yourself on, how it can be more pleasurable for both, how your husband can make it more pleasurable for you. And, there's books you can read. You can go to counselors that deal with these kinds of things. But if it's something that is really high on your spouse's list, but you could care less, about it, then we urge you to seek some help in that area.
Yeah. And this, we're talking sexual fulfillment.
Yes.
But this would work with any of these.
Absolutely.
If affection is really important to you and your spouse goes, not that big of a me, so I'm not going to do it. That would be so frustrating.
It would be frustrating.
If you wanted communication and your spouse goes, I hate talking, just let me know when you want to talk and I'll listen, whatever it is, you'd be very frustrated. And so this is important to find that out. And we'll mention, we've done this before, and this is important, about 25% of marriages, a wife has a higher sex drive than her husband. And so this may be on your wife's top 5 list of things. And if it is, you take it serious.
Yes.
So let's move on to the next one, affection.
Okay. Affection is the next one on the list, and this really covers a wide range of things. I feel like, this can be just small gestures of, I care about you. It's just little things you do to say, I love you and I care about you.
It's holding hands. It is sending a text message mid-morning just to kind of check in and say, hi, I hope you're doing well. It is sending flowers. It is going on dates. Generally speaking, most women put this as a very, very high on their list most of the time. It doesn't always. Actually, affection falls on my list of high needs. It would be in my top 5, so it's not always a woman thing. But most women go, I want affection. It's the things your husband did before you got married, like telling you you're beautiful, and all of those little things like that, doing little things to serve you and love you. And that's very important to many women and to many men. And if you're listening to this, husbands, and that's kind of not your thing, but your wife needs that, boy, if you love your wife, you're willing to do whatever that is. Learn to do those things.
Yeah. This involves non-sexual touching.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
That is
Holding
not
hands,
that is
cuddling
not
on the
an
couch.
oxymoron.
Yeah.
Yes, just touching. Little gifts that are meaningful. They don't have to cost very much. They don't have to cost anything.
Picking up a candy bar
Exactly.
when you go to the store, bringing their favorite coffee drink to them at work.
It may just be, you fix your spouse's cup of coffee at home, and fix it just the way they like it while they're sitting in their chair, and you bring it to them.
Yeah.
These are just small gestures to say, I love you and I care about you. I'm thinking about you. And so affection. I think we all, on some scale, need affection.
Absolutely. Number 3 is financial support. And that simply means I want to be financially supported. Doesn't mean I want my spouse to make lots of money. This is, I want to be in a home where, in a budget area, to where there is more money at the end of the month than there is bills at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And financial support, when you don't have that, and when there is a lot of debt, then what you have is a lot of stress in your marriage.
That's right. So, yes, financial security, just to know that we've got enough coming in that's going to pay the bills. This can involve, budgeting to make sure you're not overspending and not stressing, each other out because you're spending too much in certain areas. So, yeah, financial support is very important.
Mm-hmm. Domestic support. You want to do that one?
Domestic support. So this is pretty much just making sure that your home, your house, where you live is your safe haven, if you want to put it that way. And it's, when you walk in the door, you want things to be somewhat orderly. You'd like things to be clean. You'd like to know there's going to be a meal on the table at some point, whether it's, the husband or the wife that does these things. Hopefully it's both of you. But this is, like I said, this is more important to some people than others. Some people don't care if the house is cluttered. Some people don't care if they ever run a vacuum any day of their life. But for some people, like for me, this is very high on my list, and I don't feel like I can sit down and relax if I can see dirty bowls and cups sitting on the table next to Trey's chair. I just feel like I need to go put that in the sink. I need to rinse it. I need to put it in the dishwasher. And then things have to be tidy in my world for me to be able to relax. And so that may be your spouse. And if that's your spouse, then you need to help out in areas that, small areas that can help them to feel like they can relax in their own home.
Yeah. If domestic support is high on your spouse's list, you show up and you pitch in and you do your part. And that's very important.
That's right. And that, that just doesn't make sense to a lot of people. It's like, well, that's silly. Why does the house have to be clean before you can sit down and relax? It's a thing for some people. So just understand that we're all made different. Yes. So
recreational companionship is the 5th one. And this can be man or woman, but generally this falls on a man's list. Most men love when their wives do things with them that they like to do, whether it's go hunting with them, watch a college football game with them, go to a baseball game with them. This is high on my list, and Lee has done incredible at learning things like sports and baseball and just things that I can do, that she will come participate with me and go do that I enjoy. And I've had to learn some things that she likes to do as well.
That's right.
And so if your spouse puts this high on their list and they have a hobby they like to do, you ask if you could go with them.
Yeah. If you're familiar with love languages, we've talked about that also. Quality time, if you have tested on the love languages and you test pretty high on quality time, then chances are recreational companionship is going to be pretty high on your list. You just want your spouse to be with you and to do things with you. And sometimes that doesn't even involve going anywhere or doing anything. It may just be, we're going to sit in the room and we're going to watch a show together. But it's just spending good quality time together.
Tell me about conversation. That would be the next on the list. Is this a big man thing, or generally is it going to be more of a woman?
I don't know, because I know some men that are
That's exactly right.
big talkers.
They are. You're
right.
But
generally, I would say conversation is a little more important to women than it is to men. Now, I don't want you to get conversation and communication confused, because communication is a must in marriage, no matter for everybody. If you don't communicate in your marriage, it is going to crash and burn. So communication is, you gotta share details. You've got to make sure you're on the same page with everything. That's communication. Conversation is just talking. It's just talking about things that, may not even be very important. It's talking about sports. It's talking about the latest book you're reading. It's talking about who you saw at the grocery store.
It's what friends do.
It's what friends do. It's conversation. Some people are not big talkers and are just like, that is TMI, too much information. I don't need to know any of that. I don't want to know any of that. But if your spouse needs to talk, then you need to listen and you need to take part in the conversation as well.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So if that's important to your spouse, it should be important to you. Openness and honesty. If openness and honesty, those are foundations to intimacy and to marriage. And openness means you don't have secrets. You're not hiding things from one another. You're being honest about details, about people in your life, about things going on. And openness and honesty are just a huge foundation to making a marriage work. And if that's important to your spouse, boy, you better be open and honest and give details, whatever it is. You just be open and honest.
Yeah, that to me falls more along the lines of the communication aspect, where you're just really, communicating, you're being open about everything that's going on in your world. And but it is more important to some people than it is to others.
Yep. Family commitment.
Family commitment. That's a good one. This is putting your family before you put your job, your hobbies, all of those things.
What do you invest more time in?
Yes. And I would say that this probably swings more towards the women's list, because we just kind of got that natural maternal instinct that, mama bear, we're going to take care of our cubs. And we want our partner to feel the same. We want our partner to be there, to be involved in the kids' lives.
If you don't know, I'm going to talk to husbands. If you don't know what your kids got going on and when their games are and stuff like that, you probably need to get involved a little bit more.
Yes.
If you're spending more time on a golf course than you are with your kids on the weekend, then you probably need to, if this is important to your wife and she's put that down there, then you need to step up with that family commitment. They want you to be as interested or more interested in your family than you are anything else in your life.
That is exactly right.
Number 9, here we go. Let's do one more. Attractiveness of spouse. And this one kind of gets taken out of context sometime. And I think it's one that's still important. I don't think whether you've been married for 2 years or 20 years, whether you're 25 or 55, that you should never stop trying to attract your spouse, that you should just never let yourself go. Well, they should love me for who I am, and I don't care what I look like.
That's right.
That's kind of what we're talking about. And I think people tend to think that having kids or age gives us a pass on not trying to put out any effort anymore. And that's not the case. I will just say, and I'll throw this out here, you have had 4 children. You have brought 4 babies in this world, and your body looks incredible to me. But it doesn't look like the same. You're not the same person that you were when we married.
No.
But you work hard to do well with what you have at this age. Does that make sense? And I appreciate that. And because I want you to be in it for the long haul, I want to take care of my body so that I can be in it for the long haul, and that it just shows you that I love you because I'm taking care of myself, and vice versa.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of people look at this and they go, that's so shallow for that to be at the top of your list. But honestly, the very first thing that attracted you to your spouse was probably their physical appearance.
Yeah, she was pretty or he was handsome.
And, if you were not physically attracted to your spouse in any form or fashion, it probably just didn't go any further than that. I'm just saying that's the first thing that you noticed was, wow, they're handsome, they're pretty, they're whatever. And so we're just saying, yes, time and gravity and all those things wreak havoc on you after, years, but you should at least try to resemble the person that you were when your spouse was first attracted to you.
Yeah, that is right. And that can mean not just physically, that can also mean like when you go on a date, you get in a date night, put on something nice. You don't have to wear the same thing you wore all day long. Put on a pair of nice slacks and a nice polo shirt, guys, or something nice where something she doesn't see you in often. Put on a skirt or something that he goes, wow, you look amazing.
Wow.
So it's not just dressing down all the time in your marriage. You also take time to dress up for one another. And if that's important to your spouse, it ought to be important to you.
That's right. Something else that can go along with that somewhat is being attractive on the inside. What's on the inside comes out, and so watch the way you talk, watch just the way you carry yourself. Be beautiful on the inside as well as the outside.
Yeah. Number 10 is admiration or praise. And if your spouse has a high need for praise or admiration, then you need to heap that on really thick. You need to tell them they're doing an awesome job. We always talk about in our workshops, ladies, you've probably noticed your husband can do the smallest little minute thing around the house, and he feels like he's got to come tell you, and like he's wanting some kind of reward from you. Hey, I loaded a bowl in the dishwasher, and you're like, man, if I told you every time I loaded a bowl in the dishwasher, I'd never get anything done. But that's simply because he probably loves when you give him a thumbs up and you say, good job, honey.
That's
good
right.
job.
He just wants some recognition
he wants
for
to
a job
be your
well
hero.
done.
That's
Yes.
right. And if you're the wife and your wife needs that, you need to tell her every day she is beautiful, that she is a good mama, that she does whatever it is well. And you may be going, hey, she should know that. Yes, she should, but she needs to hear it from you. That's important.
That's true.
So those are the 10 things, and they're going to be on the list that we're going to put out. And we want you to understand, if your goal in marriage is simply for you, yourself, to be happy, then you're going to be a little on the selfish side, and you're just going to want my needs met. I just want my needs. I really don't care about your needs. But if your goal in marriage is to serve your spouse, to be selfless, and to meet your spouse's needs, man, marriage works so much better then, And I'm reminded of Philippians chapter 2 in the Bible where Paul said, talking about Jesus, look not to your own interests, but the interests of others, and put others higher than yourself.
That's right.
And when you look to your spouse and go, what do they need today that I can bless them with?
Yeah.
Then you're going to bless your marriage.
Have that giving spirit.
Yes.
Give and you shall receive.
Yes.
And that's true. That's true.
The worst thing you can do, and we're going to close out by talking about if my needs aren't getting met, but the worst thing you can do in your marriage, and we talked about this, is get in a stalemate. And that's basically where you come in and you go, my wife hasn't been meeting any of my needs for the last 2 weeks, so I'm just going to quit doing anything for her. Or my husband hadn't been doing anything around here, and so I'm going to quit doing this. And you get into a stalemate, and you both get to thinking until they step up. And that's so unhealthy for your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that.
It is.
And we'll talk about that a little bit. So what do you do if your needs are getting met? Let's just say you're putting out a lot of effort and your spouse is really not reciprocating. First, you're going to have to identify what your needs are and talk to your spouse about them. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to go, honey, here are 5 things that I really, really need, or here are 3 things that I really need from you. And let me explain what these are. Whether it's communication, whether it's sexual fulfillment, whatever it is, here are 5 things I really need for you.
Yeah.
And kind of start there by talking about it. You're going to have to communicate it. Maybe even write it down. Here are 3 things.
That's right. You know, when couples get in that stalemate where they're thinking they're not doing anything for me, I'm not going to do anything for them, you know, at some point, one of you is just going to have to say, okay, this is ridiculous. We just need to sit down and talk. Can we just sit down and talk? And so that's when, you know, you need to say, look, there are some things that I feel like I'm not getting this need met, and I'm probably not doing a good job meeting this need of yours, and I acknowledge that. But somebody's got to be the bigger person at some point and just step up and say, we got to talk. And so do that. Communicate what you need. Ask your spouse, you know, what can I do a better job at for you? And then get busy doing those things. The next one is to provide a solution.
Yes, and what that kind of means is maybe your spouse doesn't know, maybe you've approached your spouse and said, I need you to communicate, I need some conversation. And they may go, what does that mean? You're going to have to explain that. Maybe your spouse comes to you and goes, hey, it's been 2 weeks and we have had no intimacy, and how can we become more frequent? How can we, whatever it is, and you've got to come up together with a solution to better meet some needs in there for whatever that is.
That's right. And just because you've identified, you know, here's maybe the top 5, you may not want to hit your spouse all at once with, you know, I need all of these things from you this week. You might need to say, let's focus this week on this, you know, whatever, this need for me and this need for you.
Yeah.
And take it a step at a time, because you don't want to overwhelm each other. I mean, of course, it's good to know what those needs are, but when you're talking about let's really make a plan, you might want to just say, okay, let's focus on this need this week, just so you're not overwhelmed.
Now, one of the things you can do after you've provided a solution, if I've come and I've said, hey, we need to do a better job talking and communicating, and here's how we can do it, then the next step would be designate a time to check in, saying, let's plan next Tuesday night to check in to see how we're doing on meeting each other's needs. Am I talking to you enough? Is frequency improved some on intimacy? A check-in is really, really healthy so that you just don't go back the way it was. And then you may need to get, another step is you may need to get some outside help. You may need to talk to a counselor, a marriage coach, a mentor, to where maybe your spouse just doesn't understand what you need, and maybe y'all need to go sit down with somebody together and talk.
That's right. You might just need a mediator to help you both identify your needs. You might need a mediator to help you with your check-in time, you know, to talk about
some accountability.
Yeah, how things are going. Don't be too prideful to seek outside help from a professional. That is okay.
Yep, that is right. And then lastly, as we close this out, continue to meet your spouse's needs, even if they haven't been meeting yours recently. Try to inspire them. You give love, even maybe when you can't. You know, you've heard marriages, you know, the quote 50-50 or even 100-100 give and take. But there's going to be times maybe where your spouse may go through a period to where, man, they're only giving 30% and you have to step up and give 70%. It may not quite be that 50-50 thing to where you're both giving and receiving everything you want. And so if it's been a couple of weeks and your spouse hasn't just done that and you've been talking, you just keep trying to meet their needs, and you keep trying to inspire them by loving them and letting them see how willing you are to step up and just speak their love language. Yeah,
and there are going to be times in marriage where, you know, your spouse just can't meet your needs at that time. There's, you know, if their parent gets ill and they may have to, you know, I got to go take care of my parent. If you have a child that is going through something and they need extra attention, I mean, you may have a huge project at work that is going to consume you for 2 weeks, but you say, this is short. I promise this is short. And when the project's done, you know, I'll be back. But there, like I said, there's that give and take, and sometimes you have to be patient through the ups and downs. Yeah. But communicate and say, you know, I realize right now I can't give you 100%, but be patient with me because I will get back to it at, you know, when this too shall pass.
Your spouse may have COVID. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you may have 3 weeks of you're the servant and the cook and the chauffeur, and you're doing everything, and you just have to step up and do that during that time. And it's not always going to be everything is hunky-dory and all my needs are always going to be met.
That's right. But those times won't last. They really won't.
They should be few and far between.
Yes, there will be ups and downs, but hopefully the downs won't last.
Yeah, so that's right. This was fun. I liked this. This was good stuff. And at some point, maybe we need to go back and talk more about those 10 needs and break them down a little bit more. But that was fun stuff.
Yeah, give us some feedback if there's, one of those needs that we talked about that you'd like. I'd like to know more about that. So let us know.
We'll put these on there, talk about them with your spouse, and hopefully they will bless you. Have a great day.
Bye.